is the Smith Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 with the new green Viridian Optic, the noisy cricket of the firearms industry.
Noisy cricket.
Okay, get out!
Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, guys, so now that you have seen a little bit of first shots and first impressions and just overall shooting with the Bodyguard 2.0, let's talk about how it actually shot. So I came into this review a little skeptical, just in the sense that I didn't really think I was going to enjoy it very much, because I have shot a lot of micro-sized pistols before, and especially in 380, at least for me, always seems snappier than even some much smaller 9mm guns. I don't know why. I think it's just because the gun itself is just so much smaller. But with that being said, I didn't really experience nearly as much of that with the Bodyguard 2.0, and that surprised me. I definitely don't expect coming into these things to have something like this perform like a super high-end 2011, or even just a super high-end full-size gun, or a regular sized gun for that matter. And with that being said, I was pleasantly surprised at the performance of this. So first off, it was incredibly accurate. Okay guys, so this obviously is a very small subcompact EDC style handgun. So of course, you know there's got to be an accuracy test. So let's see how this puppy does. It's not too bad. Let's go give it a look. Okay, so all of the shots are in the red. It's probably about my typical 9 to 10 yards. And for such a tiny gun, I can totally live with that. If I was going a bit slower, I bet you I could get all of them to touch, but shooting 380, this thing is literally smaller than my hand. So it's a lot to try and get my whole hand on this. So I can totally live with that. Okay guys, so with putting this Bodyguard 2.0 through its paces, something that I tend to find both with myself and other shooters is that the small guns are a lot more difficult, or you have to do a lot more right to shoot accurately out to distance. So I thought we'd do a little bit of transitions from a close, like 7-8 foot target or yard target to about a 15 to 18 yard target, and just see what that looks like. And as you can see on the camera, that is pretty solid. Again, for 15 to 18 yards on a little tiny Bodyguard 2.0 in 380, that is very acceptable. I was able to put pretty much the rounds on top of each other, and had I been going a little bit slower, I bet you I could have probably got them all into just one little bit bigger hole. So out of the box, that was something that did really surprise me. I tend to expect for myself just to shoot these a little less accurately, but so much of that was I would attribute to the trigger. Typically, striker-fired polymer guns have a lot more of a mushy style trigger, especially compared to something like a really nice 1911 or 2011, but this might be one of the better triggers I have felt. It's a little heavy, but it has a super, super crisp break. I would say about 5 to 6 pounds, and right at the wall, it has zero kind of creep after that whatsoever. It is a really clean break, so almost has a bit of a 1911-esque feel. And as I said, this thing shoots relatively soft, so keeping the dot on my target is not a big issue at all. Now, the only thing is, just because I have large hands, I do get quite a bit of slide by shooting something like this for prolonged periods of time, but that's gonna happen to me with any other style of polymer gun that doesn't have a huge built-in beaver tail. So Glocks it happens to me with, FNs, pretty much anything polymer in this sphere is going to eat me up a little bit in the meat of my hand. So overall, I am super, super impressed with how well this shoots and how much I enjoy shooting it for such a little tiny package. So although it's a little heavy, which I expect from a lot of polymer handguns, this is probably the best braking trigger on a polymer gun out of the box from the factory that I've shot that's not like a performance Smith & Wesson or any of the just higher end upgraded trigger styles. And so yes, it does have a flat facing trigger, but it is absolutely incredible. So you obviously have your little trigger sort of safety right there. And when you get to the wall, I've played with this a ton, and there's absolutely no additional movement once you hit that wall. It is just a ridiculously clean break. Very, very similar, in my opinion, to a lot of 1911 and 2011 style triggers, just in terms of feel once you get to the break. And so that just really lended to me being able to shoot this really, really well. Something else that I tend to find to be a little bit just more complicated or a bit harder to work through on guns that are this size is that usually all of this grip is very, very slick, or just a lot slicker than I would like. And as you see, although the sides for carrying appendix or wherever you carry are still smooth, the front and the back strap, as well as the front and back of the extended base pad for this magazine, are pretty aggressive. It's nothing that is going to like tear your hand up, but as I go across this, it definitely grabs my hand. So when I was shooting this, and you can see in a lot of the footage that is throughout this video, it does not move almost at all. For such a small gun, was very surprised at how little this recoiled. But what made this all the better is the optic. So this optics ready model from Smith & Wesson is a brand new configuration as of July of 2026. And I have to say that this was a major, major improvement over shooting something like this in iron sights. I just really think it elevates the performance capabilities of a platform like this. The Viridian, I haven't had too much experience with it, and for this review, I probably shot about 400 rounds of 380, and so didn't really see any issues. The refresh rate on the optic was fantastic, and it actually seems to be built fairly well. I think this is IPX4 rated, so it does have some pretty substantial water resistance for a, I guess, tailored CCW optic. And a couple of cool things from the factory is that this Viridian is actually sort of matched to the slide serrations on the slide itself. So that kind of is a cool aesthetic touch. Now, this is definitely got an interesting mounting system. It uses these plastic little inserts that go underneath, which that is not something that I'm a massive fan of. But as I shot this through extended round counts and just a lot of shooting, I never had the dot lose zero. So I think at least for general CCW use, this is probably good to go. And I would hope or imagine that Smith & Wesson did their due diligence on this before they threw it from the factory on a Bodyguard 2.0 model. Another big pro, I would say, speaking of the optic, is the fact that this obviously comes optics ready from the factory. As the sort of popularity of red dots on handguns has exponentially grown, it's really, really nice for someone who is looking for, just a somewhat standard concealed carry that doesn't have all these crazy bells and whistles, but is going to function really, really well and be something that they can easily shoot and have the improvement and the benefit of it already coming out of the box, kitted on the gun, torqued down, and just ready to go. I think that when somebody gets into red dots initially, just at least at this point, the plethora of options are just so great, and there's so many different optic cuts that fit only certain types of optics, and there's some cross compatibility there, so like that can become an overwhelming just initial experience. So it kind of coming kitted with a red dot is already a huge advantage for me. And so another pro with this being optics ready from the factory is that it is already cut and mounted by the factory for an optic. So if I had any issues with this optic, I can actually send it back to Smith & Wesson and they will take care of any warranty issues. I know that before the optics model came out, if you were to send your gun out for some type of smithing to have a dot put on it, that completely voids your warranty. So if you end up having any issues with it, it's kind of on you. So big pro that exists, as well as it comes from the factory like this. So I'm also not spending anything additional to actually have this cut. So that's another big pro. The other really big positive, just for some people, it's not something that I really tend to worry about, but it actually has a little loaded round indicator there. So when it is loaded in the barrel, you actually can see just the back casing pretty clearly. So that's awesome. The last very obvious pro to me is going to be the size. So when I hold this in my hand, it literally, even with this extended 12-round base pad, is smaller than my hand. And just for comparisons, I have already unloaded this, but we will show you guys. So no magazine, and it is empty. This is my everyday carry gun. So you can see the difference is absolutely staggering. That is a massive, massive difference if you sit that on top, just as completely dwarfed by my carry gun. And because of that, you have a ton of options for how to carry this. Okay, and since this is such a small gun and fanny packs are high fashion these days in 2026, we've got the Verdict's Everyday Fanny Pack right here. And as you can see, this thing fits very comfortably, even has a built-in like holster retention strap. So you can fit a holster in there and rock a fanny pack. So let's see how she does. Works pretty well. So you saw that I threw this in a Verdict's fanny pack. I could throw this in a very small Savior or Verdict's kind of sling bag, or if there is a concealed carry specific purse or backpack or something I want to use, this would fit incredibly well in all of those, as well as a pocket. Now, I'm not a huge fan of pocket carry, but there are some companies, for instance, like QVO Tactical. Roger and his team are absolutely fantastic and make incredible holsters, and they make a specific pocket holster for this that covers the trigger guard, so you don't have anything to worry about there. So it is just a very versatile carry option that anyone who is getting into concealed carry, or just somebody looking for a much more discreet option other than like a full-size or mid-size handgun, will have just plenty of different ways that they can conceal this. Okay, so with models like the Bodyguard 2.0 that are pretty much entirely geared towards concealed carry in some way, shape, form, or fashion, one of the main considerations that you have to think about is it reliable? And specifically, is it reliable with self-defense ammunition? So we have two of the most popular rounds in the Winchester Defender as well as the Federal HST. And we're gonna run about 8 rounds through each mag just to see if they run. Probably helps if I seat the mag first, doesn't it? And that is a really good reason to test your self-defense ammo, because this particular round does not seem to want to feed. You can kind of tell by it popping out that this super, super big opening is actually kind of catching on the feed lips. So might just be one of those, it needs to be broken in or oiled a bit more, but that is why you test your ammo. So let's move on to the HST and see how that one feeds. Okay, so this is gonna be the Federal HST, and if you notice that opening is quite a bit narrower and has a bit more of a rounded FMJ style for longer up the bullet. So let's see how the HST does in this Bodyguard 2.0. And that had absolutely no issues. So again, this is one of those things, and I would say this goes for pretty much anything you're going to carry, that you should test it. So if you are running any particular self-defense ammo, don't assume that it works, because I've even seen this with full-size guns. Some guns just don't like certain bullet profiles or styles of ammunition. So test your gear. So now, there are a couple of cons for me. The first one being that they threw a tritium night sight on the front of this gun. Now, that in itself is not a con, but with this Viridian optic, there is no backup iron sights, and to some degree, I feel like that a tritium front sight's going to kind of play a bit of a factor in what this will set you back. So I would much rather them have either gone away with that and just a standard black front sight, or have built this and collabed with Viridian to somehow make an integrated rear sight for this. And I would say the other big con for me is going to be the controls in the slide release as well as the thumb safety. So they make this both in a thumb safety and non-thumb safety version. And overall, I personally find the thumb safety on this to be pretty much unusable. It is something that I really have to be consciously thinking about and putting a ton of pressure to get to slide down, and it's very hard to actually push back up. Like, it takes a pretty significant amount of force, and not in a good way. So obviously you want these to be very functional and tactile, but just with where my hand is, it's not easy to get to. It can't really be flicked up with my thumb without having to move a bunch of things around. And very similarly, taking it off, it takes a lot of very deliberate effort to specifically get that to come down, as well as the slide release. So typically these things will come off pretty well, but I noticed that both in live fire as well as just using it with no ammunition in the gun, that this is really, really difficult to slide down. So not a huge issue. It's possible that this breaks in with a little bit of time, but it's at least worth noting that some of those controls are pretty substantially stiff. Okay, so now let's go through what it will look like when you get yours. So obviously it comes in the standard, kind of very well-known Smith & Wesson cardboard box. And when you open this, you obviously will have your Bodyguard 2.0 here with the extended 12-round mag. And in this little compartment, you have an additional 10-round mag, as well as a lock and all of your Viridian. You have some additional adapter plates, as well as a microfiber cloth and the tools to actually adjust this red dot. So that is pretty much all that comes with this, but for something like this, that is plenty. And it is ready outside of you getting a holster set up right out of the box. Okay, so final thoughts. What is my verdict on the Bodyguard 2.0? Coming in at 12 ounces and with a 2 3/4 inch barrel, I didn't have high expectations, as my previous reviews have all really been on some pretty fun shooting guns, the TAC Comp, the Nightwood guns, some other full-size guns, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. I had a pretty hard opinion of what I was going to think of this, and although it's not going to be my first choice just because I have different preferences, this would absolutely be a top contender for me if I were wanting to have something off-body carry, like in a fanny pack or in a bag, that's just a little bit more discreet, or I just don't have to have on me if my particular clothing choices don't allow it. And even just having the option to carry this in a pocket, especially probably I would have the flush fit mag, but that alone is a massive, massive just benefit to just give you a plethora of just carry potential styles. It also shot incredibly well. As I've said, this was surprisingly flat. It was really, really easy to just keep track of the dot. By the end of my just larger shooting portion of this, I pretty much had just one giant hole missing out of the center of the target. And that was shooting pretty quick strings of fire. So overall, phenomenal trigger, a fantastic micro-sized gun, and like I said in my opening, this is definitely the noisy cricket of the firearms industry, and for such a little gun, packs a serious punch. As always, like and subscribe to the channel because it helps us out tremendously to continue bringing you better and better videos. Like us on all of our socials, and as always, we'll see you on the range.